to start off this month, I thought it would be a lot of fun to go backwards and look at a movie that doesn't get nearly as much attention as it probably should. Since this month is all about men in capes and women in thigh boots, it also comes with a certain stigma around the genre of comic book movie and what that is. Now, at first there wasn't a big question about it, but when the MCU skyrocketed off the platform when Iron Man 1 came out in 2008, they very quickly changed how people view what one in the nomenclature would call a comic book movie. All of a sudden, you didn't need to have, any camp or ridiculousness. You could have a serious, modern, forward-thinking comic book movie. And that's okay. But then it kind of went round the bend to, well, we can't have any comedy or wit or, just kind of campy ridiculousness. It all has to be slathered in this black, grimy paint of no smiling and serious talking. They're starting to come round bend again to they can be funny and still be serious and down to earth. And I'm going to blame Deadpool for that realization. The MCU was trying to go in that direction with the first Guardians of the Galaxy, but Deadpool really set off the spark that you can be serious and have serious tones in your movie and also be absolutely ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. Personally, I think it's stupid. You can think that I'm wrong and you can leave nasty comments or whatever, but I think it's stupid. Comic books need camp. They're comic books. Taking an essential part of comic book culture and throwing it to the side is
Toilets are always funny.
That doesn't mean that it all has to be campy ridiculous like Joel Schumacher movies, but still, you can have some camp, you can have some ridiculous. And like I was saying before, the MCU, although it is unrelentingly long and just won't end, never had the serious dick really far up their ass. Is halfway, and then it just kind of down to the floor. DC, on the other hand, which in and of itself has always had a problem with being the grittier of the two. I'm getting away from the point, which is I love myself a good campy superhero movie. So what we're going to be looking at to start off this month is Disney's first attempt at the superhero movie, which is Sky High. Now, before we get moving on, I will explain the qualifications for this segment. This segment and One Good Thing both have specific qualifiers the movies need to have to actually make it here. So, Pass the Popcorn's qualifiers are a star rating between 3 and 4, below 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, a score between 4 and 7 on IMDb, and more than 70% likes on Google Movies. Sky High, you could say, is the predecessor to the MCU. It came out in 2005. Now that, if you are knowledgeable in your comic book history, movie history, that is prime smack dab in the middle of when everybody else was releasing the comic book movies at the time. The generation of comic book movies we know immediately before the MCU and current DC. That's where you have your 20th Century Fox films, your Warner Brothers, Sony Entertainment. This was Disney's foot in the pool. This was their attempt to get in there with the big boys.
It seems evil has struck our morning commute. Here's a hint. If you're traveling eastbound on the 115, you might want to think about taking alternate routes.
As you can tell, it didn't work out very well. But that doesn't mean there isn't anything to watch there. And because this is in the popcorn flick era, I think it is terribly appropriate. We get right along going on to our main character.
Oh, hey, Dad, just trying to get a few sets in before school.
Low weights, high rep, huh? Good thinking. Don't want to bulk up.
Our main character is Will Stronghold, played by Michael this. His performance is pretty bland. I mean, your parents are like the most popular superheroes in the US, if not the world, and he just brings toast to the performance. There's a little bit of butter on there, but still, it's so toast. He's not... He acts like he's a background character, which should not be how your main character. It just shouldn't. That your main character needs to be good and memorable and there. And Will's just, he's not. Whoa! The supporting cast, on the other hand, is where this movie is just fantastic. Because it kind of has the same philosophy as the X-Men movies, is when you have such a large cast of children going to school and they have superpowers, or 4 superpowers, or learning how to use them, whatever, then you have all of the thought, and there's so much put into how's the school designed, what do we need to have for these powered kids, what precautions do we need to have, what regulations, what are they taught, what would the teachers be like, what kind of in this movie's instance, what kind of transportation to get the kids to school. Some have them, like in the middle of a suburb, and that's fine, and they in this movie they have it literally floating mountain where they can just power the way that they need to in the way that their classes go. And it's great. It feels so Silver Age.
When are we briefing the president on supervillain infiltration of the IRS?
President would be Monday.
The teachers are fairly memorable. There are some of them that are more memorable than others, but all of them bring a pretty decent A game. The principal is forgetful. She's just forgetful, let's be honest. But everybody else... I do want to touch on that the sidekick teacher is a very interesting thing to focus on, as this school literally separates its students by superhero and sidekick. And if you're a sidekick, you're like the dog. And Will ends up being like the dog of the dogs because of his parents, and he doesn't have any superpowers. School drama. The teacher used to be Will's dad's sidekick. And he loves being a sidekick. Mr. Boy is not happy with the fact that he didn't get a real chance to be a superhero, but he loves the idea of it so much. He loves, going and saving people and saving the world so much that in the end, it didn't matter that he didn't get to be a superhero, as long as he was doing what he wanted to do in some sort of capacity. And that's an interesting thing to bring to light, especially because the one of the lessons that's learned throughout the movie is that even if you have something that's considered a psychic power, doesn't necessarily mean anything, Jubilee. That, you can't be an actual, superhero. Sometimes you just have to get creative with your powers, especially ones that are really out there, like the boy that melts. That's a very specifically helpful power, but that doesn't mean that you can't actually be a hero, that you don't have to be a sidekick. And it's, you could argue that it's also talking about just general separation of classes and socialism and whatnot. It's a superhero movie. Moving on. This part of the movie starts feeding heavily into the teenage rom-com feel that goes on and on and on and gets pretty ham-fisted towards the end. And especially where Lila is concerned. I mean, their only test for power, their only test for superpowers, and what they are and what they do, is Bruce Campbell sitting on a pedestal yelling at people to use them or not use them, and if they fail. That's not, you'd think that a school like this would have some sort of biology, some sort of biological testy thing where they go, yes, this is what your things look like.
Scientist!
Not helpful. War and Peace, try to not laugh at that name, played by Stephen Strait, is the typical plot distraction of I'm supposed to be a bad guy, but I'm actually a really good guy, even though everybody says that I'm a bad guy kind of guy. When in reality, the actual villain shows up later, and we know that, War and Peace is actually, he's a little teddy bear and whatever. But, his parents, both of them, are supervillains. And again, what are the qualifications for getting into this school? I mean, they don't test for powers. Both of his parents are supervillains. What are the limits of what they're okay with and what they're not okay with? Because they seem to be fairly rigid just with the heroes.
She's cute.
Wouldn't be surprised if Principal Powers didn't get her entrance exam ideas from the guys at Beacon Academy.
So, what exactly is the landing strategy?
I'm not sure what bugs me more, that he turned out to be the dark dressed kid that was heavily misunderstood, or that their society forced him into that trope because he was going to be nothing other than a villain even though he's in a hero school. It's like picking between trope A and trope B. They both suck, but at the same time, it could be worse.
Yeah, you could be bald and have a big nose.
All in all, it's a great movie to put on your Spider-Man Jim Jams, sit on the couch with some popcorn and candy and go, I love the Silver Age, even if I like mature stuff. So, stay safe, stay sweet, and remember...
Royal Pain wasn't my mother. Royal Pain is me!
Oh my god. I mean, I was an old lady.